What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we have kind of a special little treat for ourselves. What we have here is the Herman Knives Sting. Now, probably about a month ago, or maybe a little more, one of my viewers watched, my top 10 knives or some of the knives in my collection, and he commented and he said, hey, you have a very nice collection. He was super nice, but one of the things he said is, do I see a Herman in your future? And the answer to that was yes. At that time, I'd been eyeing a Herman Knives Sting for a little while. I'd seen some of the reviews from Nick Shabazz or from Metal Complex. I'd seen some of those, but I really wanted the Sting, and they hadn't had Stings in stock for some time, and I wanted to find they have a bunch of different colors, so I wanted to find one that I liked. So I finally pulled the trigger on this version of the knife, and now I've played with it. I've carried it some time, and I wanted to give you my thoughts on it. So let me give you a tour of the knife, and then we get started with our review. What you have here is a flat ground, very basic minimalistic edge with Herman's knife on it, with his brand on it. But one of the first interesting things that you're gonna see here, hopefully you can tell, is that it's M398 blade. It's not M390, it's M398. And that's kind of a little bit weird. I'm very familiar with M390. I have a bunch of knives of M390, but this is my first my first attempt, or my first foray into 398. So I wanted to educate myself and see what exactly was M398. And from what I can tell, so M390 was developed something like 30 years ago, probably a little more, and they hadn't really updated a lot of the composition of M390. And what they did is they wanted to improve a little bit of the edge retention, and that's where they came up with M398. So M398 is a little bit, it has more edge retention than M390, but it is less tough and less corrosion resistant. Okay, so there's a trade-off definitely there. But the edge retention that you gain is that, according to Knife Steel Nerds, which I consider like one of the best sources for steel information, okay, Steel Nerds, what he said is that the edge retention of this blade is better than S110V, S90V. Okay, it's better than that edge retention. He does say that he believes that S90 and S110V are better rounded steels. They have more corrosion resistance and a little bit more toughness. But as far as edge retention goes, M398 is better than at least those two steels. So very interesting. So moving on, you've got this handle that has this milling, and I almost want to call it like a clamshell milling. It's really nice. There's some contouring, in that direction of the knife. You have a very interesting proprietary pivot. We'll talk about that. It's a liner lock, but it's very easily accessed. They've done it to where, I don't know if you can tell, but this scale it's a little bit shallower, so you can access this liner lock that has been jimped on the inside. So it's really easy to just access it and deploy it. On the back, you have a captive pivot, but it's not only that. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. Let's see there. So it has like the shape of a kind of a flower, and it's milled into the titanium, and so it's captive, but it's very elegantly done. It's not just your typical D-shape, captive pivot. It's just It's just a touch better than that. You have the longest clip in the history of mankind, and we'll talk about that too. But you have, what they've done is they've kind of flat milled under the clip, so that's really nice. I don't know if you can tell there's a gap there, and so it lands on flat. They also have a really nice back spacer. It sits really nicely flush with the scales, but they've done this little point at the top, and it's really attractive. They polished that, so it kind of has like this little accent that is really nicely done. This version is kind of a, depending on how it catches the light, it's like a bronze, bluish anodized. You can see the bronze in the highs, and the blue only comes through in certain angles. It's kind of a mysterious kind of knife, and I like that quite a bit. One of the things that Nick Shabazz noted in his review, so I'll note it here, is that the clip, not the clips, the screws. So there's a couple screws. This one goes all the way through, and there's 2 screws under the clip that go all the way through to catch the back spacer and the other side of the scale. And the tips of those screws is what you see here, but they've been rounded, so it just looks like this beautiful dot that it's tipped here. Kind of the same thing on this side to catch the liner. So that's kind of your tour of your knife. So let me give you some size comparisons. This is a very nicely sized knife. Here it is against your Para 2, and there it is against your Para 3, so it fits right in between those two. And I feel like knives that fit in that sweet spot between those two knives are just excellent for me. The size is really nice, and thickness wise, it's also much thinner than both of those. Let me show you. That's what you got in thickness. So this one carries really nicely in the pocket. Now let me show you against the bug outs. I think if I were to compare the carry, I think the bug out is a pretty good comparison. It's obviously a little bit bigger than the full size bug out, but as far as when you put it in your pocket, it feels relatively the same. Obviously not the same, but relatively. They're close. It's a little bit longer, but it's very close. So those are your size comparisons. Let me tell you what the size of the blade is. I think so. 3 3/8. Okay, not quite 3 1/2, a little over 3 1/4. 3 3/8. So really nicely sized knife. So let's get into it. The ergonomics on this knife are phenomenal. You've got a finger groove up here, and then you got this tail that just kind of tapers back, and it just fits your hand really nicely. The milling that they've done here provides a really nice texturing, so the knife doesn't feel slippery in your hands. They do have a smooth version of this knife, okay, just so you know, but I think most of them have this milling pattern on them, and it just fits really nicely in the hand. The pocket clip, it's a little bit long, so I feel it like right in this area of my hand. I do feel it. I think if they could have cut it short, maybe 1/4 of an inch to right there, it would fit more in the hollow of my hand, at least in a hammer grip and a saber grip. So I think that's the only knock, but in general, I would say that the ergonomics on the Herman knife is just really good. Now, let's talk action. The action is actually fairly unique. There's this clink that it does. I don't know if it comes through. I'll do it a little closer to the camera so you can. I don't know. Let's do it again. The only other knife that I've heard that sound from, and I'll do it again. There's like a thunk. There's a specific acoustic to it, and the only other knife that I've heard that from is from a Holt Spectre, which is certainly good company. That is also a milled titanium, similar quality liner lock, and it has the same acoustics. So the Herman knives, in that sense, is in really, really good company. Now cutting this is a laser beam, okay? It's not the thinnest of blade stocks, and I think that has to do with the fact that it's M398. Well, no, never mind, because there's M390 versions that are the exact same thickness. But for M398, it's not the thinnest of blade stocks, but because it's a full flat grind from here to here, and it's a taller blade. Like if I show you, that's the height of the blade of a bug out. So it's a taller blade than a bug out, and it just comes to a really, really screaming sharp. And it came so sharp out of the box that the cutting with this is just phenomenal. It's an excellent slicer. Obviously, you're not taking your Herman knife for your hard use camp outdoor adventures, or at least I'm not. But for most EDC tasks, opening packages, cutting cardboard, food preparation, it's super slicey. It's really, it cuts really, really well. It's a laser beam, one of the best cutters, probably on par or a little bit better than like a Para 2, which is already a really, really nice slicer. Now fit and finish, it's phenomenal. So this falls under the category of custom knives, okay? Herman, his name is Bartusz Herman. I think that's how it's pronounced. But it's a single guy that he uses machines. He doesn't do it by hand, but it's considered a custom knife. It's kind of in the same category as a Curtis knife, where Dave Curtis, he does all of his own thing. This is kind of in that same category, and for the price that this comes in at, about $650, right around there, I'd say it's excellent. A lot of custom knives, they get really, really expensive really quickly, and there's versions of this knife with dam steel and dam core and Damascus, and you can see them in Metal Complex channel and in Nick Shabazz' channel. But as far as this, I'm not gonna call this the plain Jane version, but the minimalistic version of the knife. I think for a custom knife, it's actually it's really good. It's a really good price. It's a really good value, because the fit and finish on this thing, it's incredible. When you feel it, I've always said that there's a tactile quality. There's a tactile a component to quality, okay? And when you get your hands on this one, it's the same feeling you get when you grab a Holt. There's a specific weight and feel and texture and precision that you feel and you see when you're holding the knife. That is just really, really difficult to ignore. The knife came screaming sharp. It's perfectly centered. It deploys really, really nicely. Not sure, did I talk about the action? Yeah, I did talk about the action. It's just, it fires so good. It's a light blade, so it doesn't really drop shut, at least not yet. I can probably try and give you an update and see if that breaks in a little bit. But the deployment is just outstanding. And all of the details that he has, the pivot, the milling, the contouring, the polishing of the screws, this beautiful backspacer that he's got here, all of that is just really, really, really nicely done. You have to be thinking Shirogorov type quality, custom knife factory type quality, Holt, that level of precision, Koenig areas, those kinds of things. All of those would fall under the category of what the quality of this one is showing. Now, I did want to mention, as far as my airing of grievances, what I don't like about the knife. The only thing that I really don't like about the knife, and it's a minor thing, it's the pivot. He gives you the tool, and if you're gonna give me a pivot that looks like that because of design or whatever, if you really must, then okay, but you give, and they give you the tool. So props for giving us the tool. If you really have to give us a proprietary pivot, that's fine, or a special design pivot, that's fine. But I prefer to be able to just use my torque spits to disassemble a knife. In his review, Nick Shabazz said, or give me, instead of a tool, give me a bit. Give me a bit that fits in my driver, and I can use it. But instead, they give you like this tiny little IKEA wrench thing, that it's just not the greatest thing. But other than that, I think there's a lot of good here. I think they overdid it with a pocket clip. It's super long. I think it probably a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch shorter would have been better. But other than that, man, this is a really nice knife, and I would recommend it. It's sometimes you get a knife that is very expensive, and you're like, I'm not sure I can recommend that. But for being a custom, you got a titanium frame lock with M398. Okay, you're not gonna find M398 on a lot of knives. In fact, I'm trying to, I've got a decent sized collection, and I've seen a decent amount of knives in my life. You don't see M398 used all that often, and I can't speak to the edge retention yet. I've had this for a little while, but not enough to where I have to, I have a large collection, so knives make it into my pocket, once or twice a month. So it'll be a while before I can speak to the edge retention. But from a collector standpoint, having a steel that is M398, that it's a little bit out of the norm, it's always something nice. It gives my collection variety. It's being able to have S125 or X121 or those kinds of steels in a collection. It's nice from a collector and knife enthusiast standpoint. Well, guys, I think there's a bunch of them available in the Polish Custom Knives. That's where you would go to buy them, by the way, Polish Custom Knives. And they do not sponsor me. They don't know I exist. Me and my team viewers have no connections with Polish Custom Knives. But there's a bunch of them available right now. So go take a look if you like it. I do recommend it. It's not cheap. It's not an inexpensive knife. But I do think that there's some value there because of it being a custom knife, the materials and the quality of the knife. I do think it's worth having one, or at least putting one on your bucket list. Hey, Christmas is coming. Maybe you deserve one. Guys, hopefully this is helpful. If you did, then like and subscribe, only if you think I earned it. If you want to see more of what I do, don't hit the notification button. Nobody likes to be reminded of anything. Nobody likes to get more emails. If you want to see my content, you know where to find me, and I'll be here. Until I see you again, take care.